The two-day G20 summit, a forum of 20 largest economies of the world, concluded in New Delhi earlier today. The landmark summit has ended by issuing a joint declaration, even as earlier there was serious doubt cast over whether the member nations could actually reach a common understanding. The G20 summit this time also raised significant interest in Nepal as it was held in our backyard, the Indian capital, as concerns were raised regarding the lack of opportunities sought in Nepal to reap benefit from the mega summit. Good evening, I'm Abhyuday Shrestha and these are the headlines of the hour. District Court Kathmandu directs the release of 17 alleged culprits in the Lalita Niwas land scam on bail. Min Bahadur Gurung released on bail amount of just over 20 million rupees. The implementation part of the Nepal-China bilateral agreements found to be feeble. The opposition calls for emphasis on past agreements. Two-day G20 summit announces of constructing railroads connecting India with the Middle East and Europe. Russia welcomes joint declaration. Ukraine unhappy for lack of criticism of Russia. And India versus Pakistan Asia Cup clash interrupted by rain. The match to resume intact on the rest day tomorrow. The District Court Kathmandu has directed the release of 17 alleged culprits in the Lalita Niwas land scam on bail. Announcing its verdict on the infamous Lalita Niwas land scam, the District Court Kathmandu directed the release of 17 of the alleged culprits on bail and one alleged culprit on general date. The single bench of Justice Bholanath Thakal has demanded a bail amount of 24,600,000 rupees from Min Bahadur Gurung, the operator of popular Bhatpatini supermarket chain. The District Court Kathmandu's verdict came as soon as the detention hearing of the 18 arrested alleged culprits had ended earlier today. Meanwhile, Min Bahadur Gurung has been released after paying the bail amount. The government has filed a case against 311 alleged culprits in the Lalita Niwas land scam, where land mafias in collusion with some high-ranking government officials are charged of transferring 143 ropanis of the Lalita Niwas land in the name of private individuals. A case was filed against 311 individuals, including the government's sitting secretary Krishna Bahadur Raut, Joint Secretary Sushil Baidya, 4 former ministers including Vijay Kumar Gachedar, 6 former joint secretaries, among others. 21 of the alleged culprits have already passed away. The Central Investigation Bureau of Nepal Police had filed a case under forgery and organized crime. However, in the face of political pressure, the alleged culprits were only charged under forgery. The political parties have urged Prime Minister Pushpakamal Dahal to maintain balanced diplomatic relations with the neighboring countries at today's all-party meeting held in line with the Premier's upcoming foreign visits to New York and China. Prime Minister Dahal is preparing to participate in the United Nations General Assembly in New York and then embark on his official visit to China. Former prime ministers as well as leaders who participated in the meeting at the Office of the Prime Minister and Council of Ministers in Singhadarbar earlier today advised him to move ahead by maintaining balanced diplomatic ties with the neighboring countries. Foreign Minister N.P. Saud informed that former prime ministers and parties discussed issues the Prime Minister should focus on, proposals to be presented, and what issues the Premier should be aware of. Meanwhile, CPN-UML has suggested to prioritize the implementation of prior agreements to maintain balanced diplomatic relations. At the meeting, Prime Minister Dahal had taken suggestions from former prime ministers, parties representing the federal parliament, and former foreign ministers regarding his upcoming foreign visits. The Nepal-China high-level visits that began in the 60s have intensified after 2015. Majority of the visits have struck agreements in terms of railway projects, border management, feasibility study of oil and gas, bilateral trade, among others. The implementation parts of these agreements is, however, reported feeble. In the aftermath of the undeclared border blockade imposed by India in the year 2015, then Prime Minister K.P. Sharma Oli, during his China visit, had struck a 10-point agreement that included feasibility study of petroleum products, its excavation, and open market. The same agendas were also included in Prime Minister Oli's China visit 3 years later. During Chinese President Xi Jinping's Nepal visit in 2019, there was an agreement to study inter-country railway projects, while 2 years later, when Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi visited Nepal, an agreement was struck on the railway construction. A series of agreements on similar nature of agendas confirm that the two friendly nations have been quick in striking agreements, while the implementation part has remained feeble. The opposition has therefore urged the government to make conducive environment for the past deals to be implemented. Meanwhile, the Foreign Ministry is yet to finalize Premier Pushpakamal Dahal's agendas during the China trip. Prime Minister Dahal plans to have agendas including transit operation, transmission lines, Chinese investment in hydel projects, roads and agriculture. Meanwhile, experts feel that the country's lackluster diplomacy and foreign policies are responsible for the present scenario. The Nepal Army has said that the open border and the increase in terrorist activities in neighboring countries can pose a challenge to the national security of the country. Speaking at a press conference held at the Nepal Army headquarters today, Brigadier General Prakash Deuja informed that Nepal should be vigilant on the challenges posed by the open border and the increase in terrorist activities in neighboring countries. Brigadier General Deuja said that the Nepal Army is aware of the possible challenges posed by cybersecurity, drugs, and organized crimes. At the press meet, the Nepal Army also informed that 26% of the works of the Kathmandu-Tarai fast track have been complete. According to the Nepal Army, works are being done to complete the Kathmandu-Tarai fast track by mid-April 2027. The Nepal Army also informed that 49 billion rupees has been spent on the fast track so far, and construction works are ongoing, while contracts for the tunnels at 6 places will be given. A committee has been formed under the leadership of the Defense Minister to resolve the land dispute in Kokana, Lalitpur. Acquisition of 406 ropenis of land that lies within the Kathmandu-Tarai fast track is yet to be carried out. The BP Literature Festival, hosted by Nepali Congress on the occasion of its founding leader's 110th birth anniversary, has kicked off in the capital from today. Inaugurating the BP Literature Festival at the party headquarters in Lalitpur, Sanepa today, Nepali Congress Chief Sherbahadur Deuba viewed that the party has the vision of landing the country into prosperity through the political ideology of late BP Koirala. Likewise, coordinator of the 3-day event, Badri Pandey, said that the festival has been organized to expose the younger generation to the ideology and philosophy of BP Koirala. The participating writers and literateurs observed that more brainstorming was needed on literary creations of BP Koirala. It's time now for our segment Public Pulse, where you text us with your opinion.
Pulse.
But before that, let's take a look at the results from yesterday's poll. Yesterday, we had asked you, why has the Public Service Commission failed to work effectively? 55% voted for A, influence of power, 20% voted for B, lack of capacity, and 25% voted for C, pressure from interest groups. Here's today's question. Why has the implementation part of agreements struck with various countries not been effective? Your options are A, lack of planning, B, poor diplomacy, and C, lack of relentless efforts. The voting is on. Type NEWS, select your option A, B, or C, and send it to 34001 to share your opinion with us. In our Public Voice segment, we had asked people in several provinces what should be done to create an environment for international level higher education in Nepal. Let's take a look at what they had to say.
सरकारी निकायको शिक्षालाई सुधार गर्नु पर्यो
कलेजहरु एकदम राम्रो राम्रो टिचरहरु यहाँ ल्याए भने हामीलाई बाहिर जानु पर्दैन
यहाँ भएका शैक्षिक संस्थाहरुलाई चाहिँ बलियो बनाउने
जुन इन्टरनेशनलमा पढाइन्छ त्यसलाई चाहिँ हामीले नेपालमा भित्राउनु पर्यो
शिक्षा प्राप्त गरिसकेपछि नेपालमै केही काम गर्न सक्ने अवस्था आयो भने
विदेशी होइन
शैक्षिक नीतिहरू राम्रो बनाउनु पर्यो
पढाइमा जति लगानी गरिन्छ त्यसको प्रतिफल हुनु पर्यो
मास्टर डिग्री गरिसकेपछि त्यो विद्यार्थीले रोजगार पाउने कि नपाउने भन्ने प्रमुख समस्या नेपालको यो रहेको छ
कस्तो किसिमको शिक्षा नीति बनाउनु पर्छ भन्नेमा जनता पार्टीहरूले स्पष्ट दृष्टिकोण बनाएर एकरूपता ल्याएर अगाडि बढ्यो भने
आफ्नो जब प्रतिको चाहिँ जुन एउटा सुरक्षा हुनुपर्ने त्यो पनि छैन
स्वरोजगारमूलक खालको चाहिँ शिक्षा अबको युगमा हुनुपर्छ
टिचिङ मेथडहरू छ त्यसमा अलिकति चेन्ज ल्याउनु पर्यो
हामीले अन्तर्राष्ट्रिय स्तरको गुणस्तरीय शिक्षा प्रदान गर्ने उच्च शिक्षाका संस्थाहरू स्वदेशमै स्थापना गरेर बाहिरबाट पनि विद्यार्थीहरूलाई चाहिँ यहाँ आकर्षित गर्न सक्छौं
अन्तर्राष्ट्रिय लेभलको पाठ्यक्रम नेपालमा पनि त्यो स्तरको पाठ्यक्रमहरू निर्माण गर्ने
हाम्रो शिक्षा चाहिँ रोजगारीमूलक हुनु पर्यो
दक्ष जनशक्ति उत्पादन हुने खालको चाहिँ शिक्षा नीति आवश्यकता छ
It's time now for the international update. The G20 summit in New Delhi ended earlier today as India handed over the bloc presidency to Brazil, while both the US and Russia praised a consensus that did not condemn Moscow for the war in Ukraine, but called on members to shun the use of force. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi asked the group's leaders to hold a virtual meeting in November to review progress on policy suggestions and goals announced at the weekend. Yesterday, the group adopted a leaders' declaration that avoided condemning Russia for the war, but highlighted the human suffering the conflict had caused and called on all states not to use force to grab territory. The consensus came as a surprise. In the weeks leading to the summit, sharply differing views on the war had threatened to derail the meeting, with Western nations demanding members call out Moscow for the invasion and Russia saying it would block any resolution that did not reflect its position. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, the head of the Russian delegation, said the summit was a success for India as well as the Global South, the world's developing countries. He told a press conference the Global South's position in the talks helped prevent the G20 agenda from being overshadowed by Ukraine. White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan told reporters the summit declaration does a very good job of standing up for the principle that states cannot use force to seek territorial acquisition or to violate the territorial integrity and sovereignty or political independence of other states. The summit also admitted the African Union, which includes 55 member states, as a permanent member of the G20, underlining the bloc's representation of the Global South.
Sports news.
The match between arch rivals India and Pakistan has been halted by rain at Sri Lanka's Colombo Stadium. The match will now resume tomorrow as India will come out to bat again at their overnight position of 147 runs for the loss of 2 wickets in 24.1 overs. Earlier today, Pakistan elected to bowl first after winning the toss as India got off to a rollicking start, racing to 121 runs in the 17th over. Rohit Sharma was the first to depart after scoring a well-compiled half-century. Rohit was well supported by Shubman Gill, who also struck a half-century. Shadab Khan and Shaheen Shah Afridi have picked up a wicket each for Pakistan. KL Rahul and Virat Kohli will resume the Indian innings tomorrow. Chief coach Gaurav Basnet announced the 14-member team today. And now that's all for the moment. Thank you for watching. Good night.